Welcome to Mujeres Create. I am so excited to have Jason Rosario with us today. Mujeres Create is a space that I created for women, but I am so interested in men's perspectives, especially your perspective, Jason. You've been in the corporate environment, have lived many lives, and a lot of those lives have been always so purposeful on the impact and just the work that you're doing. I'm such a fan of, so I'm so happy to have you on the show. Jason, I want to read a little blurb from your bio on LinkedIn because this really just inspired me to go and rewrite my bio. You know, in a world where there's so many generic AI bios, I saw yours and I'm like, whoa, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
So I want to read some of that. I've built my career working at the intersection of people, culture, and business, especially in moments when things feel complex and misaligned. I've moved across finance, media, marketing, and executive leadership. What I've learned is this: organizations rarely struggle because they lack ideas or ambition. They struggle when the systems underneath, including strategy, culture, and people, fall out of alignment. That's where I tend to show up. I love it. Yeah. You've spent time bridging finances and creativity, data and emotion, tradition and disruption. I speak the language of both spreadsheets and storyboards, and I am as comfortable working with C-suite in New York or Geneva as I'm helping teams rethink how they actually work together. You spent time as the Chief Diversity Officer for BBDO. Yeah. But most exciting and most recently, you have taken a big leap and now you're a founder. Well, you've been a founder of the Lives of Men. Yeah. And I'm so excited to talk to you in this new phase of your life. Relatively recent, right? Full time. Right. So welcome to Mujeres Create. I'm so excited to have you here. It's truly an honor.
Thank you, Jasenia. And it's weird listening to you read that bio because it's like, I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, yeah, so you're definitely making me blush. But I wanted to strike a very human tone with that bio. And it's very difficult for someone like me to sort of explain to people what it is that I do when whether it's an interview, whether it's a search firm, when you're trying to sort of position yourself as an executive, it's kind of like, well, where do I start? So I wanted just to write something that I think captured my range. And so I'm glad that it resonated.
Oh, it was beautiful. So Jason, tell us about you. Yeah. I've known you in the advertising media industry for a few years. Always a fan of your work, but tell me more about you. I love that you're Dominican like me. Yes. Every time I have someone who's Dominican, I'm just like, de lo mío.
Plátano power, yes.
Plátano power. Yeah. Tell us more about you.
Yeah, I am a born and raised New Yorker. From the Dominican Republic, born and raised here, but my family's Dominican, of course, and product of a single parent home, oldest of a total of 7 kids.
Wow.
Yeah, my mom had 5, and then I have 2 sisters from my dad's side. And, just kind of always been very present to who I am and how I move in the world. And I have to credit my mom and my grandmother and, just my family for always sort of reminding me who I was and whose I was. So I think that sort of presence of mind and that self-awareness has always carried me forward, whether it was, in my career or my personal life, always being aware of who I was and how I wanted to leave the world, what kind of impact I wanted to make. And I think that's been the through line throughout everything that I've done is really, what is the impact to be made here? How do I come into a space and leave it better than I found it? Has always been sort of my North Star. And so, who am I beyond the work? I'm a dad, I'm a proud dad to a 24-year-old. I know I look like I had her when I was 12.
Seriously, how old were you?
Yeah. No, I was 21, 22, coming out of college, and I'm sure we'll get into that story.
Yeah.
But, I'm a dad, I'm a proud brother, I'm a son, I'm a partner, I'm a mentor, and I am a human being that is a spiritual being having a human experience, as they say, right? That would be me.
I got chills as you said, a spiritual being, because especially as I've been getting more into my spiritual journey, more and more I see us as like that. We're just having different experiences in this human life.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that, Jason. I recently watched one of the episodes of your Men of the House series, which I am a huge fan of.
Thank you.
And the episode was with your mom.
Yeah.
And it was the first episode of the series as you kicked it off. And I was so blown away by the conversation. I highly encourage everyone to go and check out Men of the House on YouTube and anywhere else.
Anywhere you get your podcast.
Yeah, anywhere you get your podcast. This series, and you'll talk about it. But to me, especially as I've been getting more into this space of like getting to know my parents and healing some childhood situations that we all endure, especially as an immigrant myself, just seeing how you and your mother tackled so many beautiful questions, deep questions, difficult questions, and doing it so openly and with so much vulnerability. Hats off to your mother. Hats off to you.
Thank you.
For just being there and like being a vessel and just like giving her the space to speak her truth, because our parents sometimes have never had the voice that we now have, especially in this corporate environment that we navigate. So I was so inspired by that. So can you tell us a little bit about Men of the House?
Thank you. And thanks for watching it. Men of the House, let me just start by kind of just defining why I called it that. Man of the house, el hombre de la casa, right? Is, it's a phrase that we hear a lot in our culture. It's a job description, or it's a job that doesn't come with a description oftentimes, right? And so I've always been very aware of my responsibility of becoming el hombre de la casa, the man of the house. And when I think about that and wanting to sort of embark on that journey, I couldn't think of anybody better to start that story than with my mom, the source.
Yeah.
And, if you know me, you know a little bit about me. Your audience may not, but my relationship with my mother is, very public. Yeah, I post her on social media, and she's with me on panels and all that. And people, when they see it, they're like, oh, wow, like it's such a beautiful relationship. But they don't know the sauce, how it's made, right? The behind the scenes. So I wanted to do two things with that first episode, is kind of ground it in the source energy of who is Jason, how did he become who he is today, the people that, the person that people see, and then have that conversation through the lens of my mom. Yeah. And then I also wanted to have a conversation that, sort of showcased the ingredients that go into creating a relationship, a mother-son relationship like the one that we have. And then I think the third thing was just selfishly for me, I wanted to memorialize that, in this world of sort of content and media, have a conversation with my mom that I can always go back to.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's just like having a journal and having that to revisit, but then having her voice, having her on camera, to be able to come back and revisit was such a special moment for me.
That's so beautiful. And I can see you, both of you, watching this interview in several years when you're both older and just cherishing that moment, the courage to have those conversations, which in the Latino community is not so easy. Yeah. There's definitely so many people that have strained relationships with their parents. And that is one of the things that really like tugs at my heart when I see this happen. I wish for everybody to be able to have and heal those relationships and be able to speak openly as you have with your mother. And it's just so beautiful. So I highly encourage people to go and watch Men of the House. It's such a beautiful series.
There's one, I guess I'll call it a regret, but it's not really a regret because it's not, something that I had control over. But I wish I had my dad around to have the same conversation with him. Because you talked about it. I mean, so much of in our community, we don't realize how much our parents struggled, especially immigrant parents struggled. They didn't have command of the English language the way we do. They didn't have, sort of the opportunities that we've been afforded. So being able to sit down with her and have that conversation, it just gave me a newfound respect. I've always had a lot of respect and admiration for my mom and the ways that she's raised us. But, to have her sit down and like really, share that with me. I mean, when you watch the episode, you're going to realize that we broke stories.
So many juicy, beautiful stories.
Yeah. So it was such a beautiful moment for me to like just see my mom through a different lens as well.
Yeah, they're humans. And, you talked about being a parent at 21 and our parents, my mom had me at 20. My dad was 23. Imagine I didn't have a good head on my shoulders at 20. I cannot imagine raising a child at that age. And especially, my parents were from El Campo. I was born in El Campo, no resources, nothing. And a lot of our parents have the same story of, not having a lot of that access or resources or, parenting that taught them how to do things, how to navigate life. And so I think having compassion for those experiences that our parents dealt with as they were raising us is very important. So beautiful series.
Thank you.
And then that leads me to share a little bit more about the lives of men before we get deeper into the conversation, the platform that you've built.
Where do I start? I think that when people ask me what it is and why, there's always two answers to that question. The first answer is, I think I've alluded to it, that I've always been somewhat a man on a journey, if you will, right? Very present to the fact that my dad wasn't around, making a lot of mistakes, learning how to be a man as I went. So on one level, it was creating something that I thought I needed, right, at the time. And even now, like, just navigating certain things at my age as a man, it's just like, man, I wish I had my father around or someone. I had men around in my life, but consistently that I can be like, hey, what do you think about this? Guide me here, right? So on one side, it was creating a platform that was sort of feeding me back what I needed. The second thing and the second reason was back in 2016 when I started to conceive this was the rise of what we're experiencing now, what I'll say the current social political landscape of Trump 1.0 and Me Too was just happening, right? So there was this conversation around what does it mean to be a man right now? And what is toxic masculinity? What is healthy masculinity? And then specifically as it relates to men of color and Latino men, machismo, right? What is machismo and how does that impact our community? And so all of a sudden I found myself in this conversation. And the more you do this work, I didn't set out to sort of be a thought leader in this space, but the more I did this work, I realized that you can't have a conversation around men and masculinity without also having a conversation about mental health and the ways that those two dynamics are intertwined. And so that's kind of what was the wave that I've been riding for the last 10 years now.
Wow.
And so the Lives of Men is really that. It's a platform. It's a personal development platform for men dedicated to really supporting men in exploring, more connected and fuller versions of themselves, right? And so we create community opportunities for a brotherhood to happen in person and offline, online and offline, I should say. We also work with organizations that want to engage with men, whether it's brands, whether it's companies. So we've developed a series of programs and curriculums that we partner with organizations on, really human leadership development programs that really activate men to show up fuller and healthier versions of themselves. And by doing that, then activating hopefully better organizations, better communities. And I think that's the importance of the work.
Thank you. And we'll definitely get deeper into the work. Yeah. I wanted to just ask you a few questions about your experiences, the experiences that led you to this work. And you mentioned you didn't set out necessarily to do this work and become this thought leader. But can you share a little bit more about your experiences as a young man in New York City? You mentioned being raised by your mother, single mother, 7 children. Your father wasn't present in your life. What were those early messages that you received that in our communities, it's so common, single mothers, men being raised, by themselves also, single mothers working full time and not having a lot of time to spend at home because of economic reasons. Can you share a little bit about those early experiences that you have that now you look back on and you're like, I've come a long way?
Yeah. I mean, I want to talk about a couple of different instances that I can remember like they were yesterday, to be honest with you. But I'm trying to do that in a way where I can maintain my composure because they're very, very emotional moments. But I would say that there are many, but 3 that are real sort of visceral moments in my life. My 8-year-old, my 8th birthday. It was, I think when I look at pictures of that day, in that time frame in my life, I can say that that's when I started to lose my innocence as an 8-year-old boy, because our life, certain things happened in that time where our life changed. at the time, it was just me, my mom, and my sister, Jerica. And so, it was when I started to become very aware of that things weren't just easy, or that there was struggle happening. My mom was going through some things. And so, that's kind of when I started to really wake up to the fact that I needed to be a support system to my mom, even at that young age, at 8 years old. Then the next moment was at 14. And I write about this a lot, when my stepfather at the time was, he was abusive to my mother. And there was a moment where at 14, I was already 6'2", maybe. Wow. And, kind of growing into my young adultness, and I had had enough. And he challenged me to fight. He was like, si tú eres un hombre, ven, come with me outside. And, wow. This is a grown man challenging a 14-year-old kid to a fight because he was standing up for his mom. That was another moment where it's like, okay, something's shifted here, right? Like now I'm a protector, right? Talking about, that aspect of it. And so, and then beyond that, it was just moments in my own relationships where, whether it's through breakups, whether it's through, traumas and strife and tension, that I realized, like, man, I don't think I have the tools to be the kind of man that I know I want myself, or I want to be. I think I had tools that were negative confirmation, right? Like I knew I didn't want to be like my dad. I knew I didn't want to be like my stepfather. But I didn't have the opposite of that. It's like, okay, what do I replace those things with? What are the positive things? And so those were sort of some of the initial early experiences that aggregated into sort of me creating this thing that is now the lives of men. But even before I had a name for it, I was doing this work. Yeah. And now that I think about that, it was just like, man, all of those things shaped me.
Thank you for sharing those vulnerable moments. And, you talk about losing that innocence at such a young age. I have 3 nephews. One of them is 18 and he's very tall. But when I look into his eyes, I see innocence, and they're still children at that age, right? They're still forming themselves. And I can't imagine you at 8 and 14 having to feel like now you're an adult, now you have to take care of, now you have to protect, now you have to help. It happens so commonly. And, the female version of that is, women also sometimes, like when parents are going through situations, they're the ones that also have to step up and become that, the protector. Imagine, and like stepping out of your feminine energy to be el hombre de la casa. It happens so much. And in one of my last episodes, I talked about how women are leading with masculine energy versus feminine energy because of all the things that we have been raised with. And, talk about just like how our minds are wired at such a young age, and how it kind of sometimes, if you're not doing the work of therapy and self-help and getting to know yourself better, you carry a lot of that into adulthood. Yeah. But, a lot of the experiences that we live now lead us to the work that we're doing.
Absolutely. There's beauty in that experience as well, right? Yeah. Because from that, a sense of responsibility is born, right? A sense of ambition is born. A sense of, maturity is born, so there are positive things that come from having to grow up very early. And, but again, there's a flip side to that, of course, that there are challenges. So for me, I'll give an example. I've grown up with such a deep sense of responsibility for my entire life that now in my adulthood, it's hard for me to like let my hair down and play. Yeah. And the idea of playing for play's sake feels irresponsible. Wow. It feels like, no, I should be doing something more productive. It should be, but it's just like, no, like play is also important. You need to tap into a more, playful, childlike space in order to spark creativity. Absolutely. Right? And so, there's pros and cons to all of it. But I think part of what we hopefully are doing is sort of looking at it and saying, what do I need to take with me from those experiences, and what can I leave behind? And I think that's the work of the healing journey that we're all on.
When was the first time you kind of developed that awareness of there's a space for me and for this? And you talked about Trump 1.0, Me Too. Was that around that time when you realized, okay, maybe there's an area for me to really dive in here and do some meaningful work?
Absolutely. It was a combination of that, more practical, sort of the environment being what it was. But then it was also like we all get to a point in our lives where we start to question, what is our purpose? What are we really here to do? And at the time I was in finance, and I left in 2016. It was the first time I quit my job to go the entrepreneurship route. And it was the confirmation of the sign that I got at the time that I was on the right path was, of course, opportunities making themselves available to me, but it was like, man, I'm doing this for myself first. And that I've made sure that I carried that all the way through today in the work, because for me, it's most important to embody the work that I'm doing.
Yeah.
While that work is very public, I still very much make sure that before I write an article or record a podcast episode, to ask myself, is this true for me?
Yeah.
Right? Am I doing this for me first? Because I want to always be in fidelity to that work, because that's where it started. It started for me first.
I love that. Yeah. And, I think 2016 was such a pivotal year for so many of us. So many things shifted, especially after the Me Too movement, especially for women too. Yeah. Can we talk about the intersection of this work for men and for women? On my podcast, I really talk about a lot of themes around women empowerment. One of the messages around women empowerment is the message of, being independent women and not needing men or help or support. And that truly has become so detrimental to our physical health, our emotional health, our mental health, our spiritual health. Talk to us about, why is it important that men and women are doing the work together? And I can share my POV too after absolutely. You go.
Well, first, I think let's define the work. Right. I always want to be very careful when we're talking to people that you and I are in therapy. You and I are in this space, and we use language that we take for granted.
Right.
But when people listen to it, they're like, what do you mean by the work? So what do you mean by the work first? And then I'll tell you what I think. And then we'll unpack it.
That's a great revision, because you're right. Not many people are doing the work. To me, the work is, and the work really started for me after a health situation that I navigated, a hysterectomy. And then that kind of went into my relationship and redefining so much of myself as a woman. And a lot of those experiences shaped the work that I'm doing now in this podcast. But the work for me is self-discovery, unlearning, relearning, therapy, trying to understand, the behaviors that you're carrying from pain and trauma versus from, love and who you truly are. And, ways that, how can you uncover that through therapy? I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of self-help books, a lot of content that just helps me understand my experiences. Because as we were talking about earlier, growing up, we didn't really have the perfect situation, the perfect setup to learn about important things in life, such as relationships and money and career and all of those things, career and all of the things that we do in our lives. So a lot of the things that we do are from people that we emulate or messages that we hear. So through therapy and through self-work, I've learned to truly understand me at a deeper level. And so that's the work for me. Yeah. What does the work mean to you?
Yeah. So for me, the work is, what I call the work starts with an aha moment. But here's the flip of it. AHA is an acronym, right? Oh. So AHA to me, and having this aha moment, is the idea of becoming aware of yourself, right? Looking in the mirror and saying, this is who I've been my entire life. This is who I've been taught to be. This is who I really want to be. And then having the awareness to sort of say, okay, I'm going to make a change. That fundamentally is the work. But the reason I say you have to have an aha moment is because when we break it down, A is for awareness. Awareness of your environment, awareness of yourself.
I love this already.
Self-awareness, right? Then the H is honesty. It's truth. You have to be honest with yourself about where you are, where you're falling short, relative to your vision of yourself, right? So having that honesty and that truth telling. And then the last A is action, right? You have to take action. You have to do something about all of that information, right? That equals what we call healing. That to me is the work. So you have to have an aha moment. So what you just described, right, was you had a moment in time when you got to this space of, wow, something's off, right? And then you realize, oh, I need to do this. That's aha. But if you break it down further, those are the elements of that moment.
I love that so much. And
I like frameworks. I don't know. I'm a nerd.
I feel like I'm just going to take this framework and I'm like, am I having an aha moment right now? What's the action?
Right.
It's so spot on, because my aha moment was my painful hysterectomy that I had to deal with, that I endured. And then at that moment, I really had to redefine who I was, because a lot of the things that I was doing up until that point, people pleasing, you know, in a career that was no longer making me happy or feeling aligned with myself, in a relationship that was also not working very well for both of us. And so looking at yourself in the mirror with honesty and saying, what do I want? Is this how I want to live my life, or what do I actually want? And what's the action? The action was therapy and self-help and all those things. So thank you for breaking it down so amazingly.
Sure. Thank you. And I think it's important that all of it has to work together, because, and this is where the work differs. And then we'll get back to your question about men and women, right? Because that's a big aha, right? But the breakdown happens, at least for men, is that we identify or we diagnose a problem, and then we immediately go to the fixing of the problem, the action, right? So it's like, aha, it's like, no, but you need a truth moment, right? Where have you fallen short? And where do you take responsibility for yourself? And then you move into what actions do I need to take, whether that's therapy or what have you. But I think all of it is necessary. So as it relates to men and women, I often say that this work, when people ask me the lives of men, so what is that about? Is that for men only? I'm like, no, that's the catch. The catch is that, yes, everything we do is in service of men and boys and creating spaces for them to thrive. But when you dig deeper, this is about building stronger community and stronger relationships and stronger family units, right? So when you take the very basic concept of patriarchy and how we've been taught that everything that's male is dominant and it's, you know, powerful and it's right, you know, we men and women have been impacted by that in different ways.
Absolutely.
So for the aha moment is recognizing that, and then realizing that the work that we're doing as men is only half the battle, right? Like if you look at this table, you can't see it on the screen, but it's like there's a line right in the middle of it. On my half is my work to do, and then on your half is your work to do. My work. And then we can come together and create a table where we unpack what's ours to do. And that is what I would hope to see happen more often, is that there's been this role reversal, to your point earlier about, you know, women in some ways by necessity having to adopt a more masculine posture, right? And there are a lot of structural issues as to why that happens in our community. But there's this overcorrection around sort of women leading in this way. But there is an opportunity for women to step back and say, let's let men lead, but then men have to take that responsibility seriously and know how to lead. Because I think that there is a beauty in that dynamic of the yin and the yang, the duality of it all, where there's a reason why women are women, right? There's the nurturing aspect of it, the connective aspect of that. And then there's a reason why men are men, right? There's the sort of protecting aspect of that, right? The building aspect of that. Both of those energies are important, but we can't do that if we're still bogged down in competing with each other, and in blaming each other. And unfortunately, that's kind of where we are right now, especially with social media. You know? Social media, if you just scroll, you know, on any given day, all you're seeing is, you know, high value man this, you know, women need this, and this is the list of requirements that I need from my man. And it's just like, can we take a step back and realize that we're just human beings trying to figure it out, and that we are all messed up. I was going to curse, but we're all messed up in our different ways. So if we can take the time to really just become self-aware and then figure out what we need to do individually and come to the table with that work, half of that work already being done, I think we'll wind up in a better place.
No, it's beautiful. And it speaks to the balance that we want to strive as a society, as humanity, just balancing, because at the end of the day, we all need each other, right? We all need each other. And the more we work together to heal, to develop that awareness and to take action, truly for our own happiness first, for our own to be able to function better in life and be able to do the things that you actually want to do. But you're also serving society and your partner and your families and your friendships, and everything around you just improves when you develop that self-awareness and you commit to doing the work. Looking at our community, our Latino community, definitely this is an area where a lot of work needs to happen. When we think about Latin American countries, how we've been shaped around, the patriarchal ideals, and there's still so much of that is also here in the United States. Not only we're kind of taking in what already exists from the patriarchy here, and also bringing in what we grew up with from Latin America. So it's a double
whammy.
entendre whammy. How can we bring in more men into these conversations? Because I know there's a lot of fear around it, especially because of all the conversations in social media can be very polarizing and just turn people away altogether from doing the work. How can we bring in more men into the conversation, and not to be afraid of, and I loved what you said in our prep call, which was, we're not trying to get men to cry. Yeah. We're trying to get men to, I think you said, wake up, or
it's a wake up call. But what we're trying to get men to do is just be more present. Be more present in their bodies, in their minds, in their environments. That's really what this is about. So yeah, I think when we think about how we invite men into this conversation, part of the answer to that is we have to think about the language we're using.
Yes.
We talked earlier about, let's unpack what the work is, right? Yeah. Because we get so bogged down on language. So part of it is understanding male psychology a little bit better, and understanding that it has to be, the work that we're doing here has to feel, for a large swath of men, less aspirational and less inspirational, but it has to feel practical. It has to feel like, oh, I understand that, and I can see where in my life this has application and utility. I can go home today and apply that. So that's number one. It's let's think about how we're talking, inviting men into this conversation. The second thing is we have to ask better questions, and wait for the answer as well. Sometimes the questions that we ask are not going to yield the type of answers that we're comfortable with. If you ask a man, how are you really doing? Oftentimes you don't wait for that answer. And then when we do get the answer, it's kind of like we rush to prescribe a solution. And that just feeds into what's already wrong. It's kind of like we're so used to having to fix the thing or produce our way out of things. It's like, no, let's hear him out and let's unpack what it is that's behind that. Because oftentimes the behavior that he's exhibiting is just a symptom to a bigger problem. He might be overspending money. He might be out there dating around and womanizing. But what he's really feeling is sadness.
Right.
What he's really feeling is insecurity about something. He might be fearful of something. So let's ask better questions, and then let's wait around for the answers so that we can at least have a clearer conversation.
I don't mean to laugh at what you said, but I just love how you're like, men might be out there womanizing. And
I'm not saying.
And you're like, but what you might be feeling is sadness.
But it's true.
Pero está gozando.
Yeah, pero está gozando, people. And listen, I don't want this to be read as like an excuse.
I love it. No. I know exactly what you mean. But because, one of the things I also loved about your Men of the House episode was that you talk about how women can show men how to show their emotions and feel their emotions. And men are very good at not showing their emotions and being afraid to be vulnerable. So it makes total sense that if you're feeling depressed or sad or lonely or lost, you don't know what to do.
But
you don't know what to do with that. And then you go to what you think you're supposed to be doing.
What you're taught.
What you're taught.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like you're sad, you just broke up with somebody.
Yeah.
Then
go find the next one. And you won't be sad anymore.
Right.
Rather than like dealing with those feelings.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's the point that I'm trying to make.
No, I know. And
I know, but it's
so funny.
It's so complicated.
No, thank you for breaking it down, because I definitely want to see more men and women working together more and understanding each other, having compassion. To your point on, ask the questions, but be there to receive what you may not want to hear. Be able to receive the emotions and have that compassion to truly create that space for men to speak and to express themselves and to share their vulnerability if that's what depending on how they want to kind of share back to you. But I think creating that space is so important. So thank you for breaking that down from your perspective, which I really value, because I have a lot of women on the podcast and I know a lot of women, psychology and thinking. So having you is so refreshing and very powerful. Jason, let's talk about, prior to becoming the founder of Lives of Men, you spent a lot of years in corporate. I want to know about your pivot and how that process was. I read this powerful article that you wrote and posted on LinkedIn. I highly recommend everyone go out and read it. But it talked about how organizations are investing in AI tools and technology and productivity, but not as much in mental health and wellness, and truly arming their workforce with better tools to manage stress in the workplace. So this is like a two-part question. The pivot from corporate and the time you spent there, and then how you felt kind of pivoting out and being a founder. And then the third question, which is the AI productivity.
The AI of it all. I've traversed many landscapes in my career, and I started in finance, successful by every metric there, wound up living in Switzerland for a few years, just, kind of hitting every marker that you're supposed to hit in those spaces, and decided to leave that career, that industry in 2016, after business school, sort of made a slight pivot. And around that same time is when I launched The Lives of Men. But I've worked in media, I've worked in tech, I worked in marketing and advertising. And I think all of those experiences have given me the range that I have professionally, but it's also given me insight into how organizations work and given me an opportunity to recognize patterns. And one of the patterns that I've noticed, especially now from the vantage point of looking at organizations from the outside in, is that a lot of what ails organizations is not a lack of strategy, is not a lack of sort of innovation. It's what's the unlock to innovation? What's the unlock to culture? What's the unlock to, this element that makes organizations really feel special? And it's when your leaders are not embodied in who they are, especially your male leaders, right? Corporate is still very much a male dominant, hierarchical structure, regardless of organization, right? That's just the reality. But when you have, and I've been fortunate enough to work with leaders who are male, but are also very connected and grounded in themselves, those teams and those organizations are very different than others that I've been a part of. And I think that the most important, or the common denominator is, you can teach strategy, you can learn, you can develop a creative sensibility, you can learn the P&L of it all. But what you can't learn oftentimes on the job is what I think is the hallmark of leadership, and that's empathy. And that's being able to read a room. That's being able to recognize when you as a leader need to lead from the front or when you need to lead from the back. All of these skills, these softer skills, are not taught in a business school.
No.
They're not taught in the boardroom. In fact, they're devalued in these spaces. So for me, part of what I think is important and what I've learned in my career is that in order to achieve the metrics that every organization judges itself on, growth, low turnover, innovation, all of those metrics are largely driven by your leadership's capacity to build environments where people can be their best selves. We're not talking about DE&I. We're not talking about, kumbaya moments and, having pizza parties all the time. But what we are talking about is creating environments where people feel like you respect them and that you value them and that you're going to give them whatever it is that they need to be successful. And then trust that all of that will trickle down into the organization. And for me, my vantage point is men. My vantage point is, and my work is pointed to, if men are still 80% of the CEOs in corporate America, then how do we start with those men across leadership levels and give them the tools that they need to be successful themselves, but also create environments and containers for their companies to be successful.
Think about, and you mentioned this in the article too, people are carrying so much, yet they step into their places of work and show up as if nothing is happening. Like they're not, dealing with financial pressure or family pressure or emotional situations, laws. People show up and are encouraged to show up. Their best selves is pretend like nothing's happening. Like you're ready for the job. Like you're ready to present. Like you're ready to close that deal. Just show up. Yeah.
That's been one of the biggest lies that people have told us. It's like, we want you to be your best self. No, you don't.
No.
Because my best self looks like I just was on the train this morning and something happened on the train and now I'm carrying that with me. Now I have a 9:30 a.m. call that I have to be ready for. It's just like, no, my best self is an acknowledgement of my full humanity, the fact that the world is falling off a cliff.
Absolutely.
And you're asking me to create something that isn't really making an impact. It's making an impact for the organization, but in the grand scheme of things, does this really matter? Right? And as a leader, can you understand that? Can you create a space where I can reconcile that in my mind? I still have a job to do, don't get me wrong, but I'm a human first. And I think that to me is the most important thing.
Absolutely. And spending that time in corporate environment and now pivoting into a founder CEO, tell us a little bit more about that process and the things that you dealt with. Because I know for me, pivoting out of corporate was a multi-year decision. It was truly difficult for me to come to that decision because of, fears and imposter syndrome and who am I outside of corporate, all of those things that I struggled with. What did it look like for you?
All of the same things, a lot of fear, a lot of insecurity. And the challenge, though, is that at our big age, right, like there's so much at stake. We're homeowners, we're parents, we're taking care of our parents. We have what feels like really big responsibilities that we cannot afford to slack on or like let go of. So for me, it was dual parts, being tired of contorting into a smaller version of myself every day to do a job.
Ooh, Jason, that's a big one.
That being so tired of that whatever was on the other side of it felt more exciting to me. Right. So I just got sick and tired of being sick and tired. So that part. And then the other part was I don't believe that there's an organization out there that is capable of, and I'll speak for myself, allowing me to show up with all of my tools. Like if I'm Batman and I have a utility belt of things, right? I can't show up to work wearing that utility belt and feeling like, I can use whatever I need at any given time and moment to contribute. There's no organization that I've been a part of that has allowed me to do that. So as a founder, I said, I'm going to just double down on myself. I'm going to bet on myself. But more importantly, I have enough experience. I have the pedigree. I have all these things that if I needed to go get another job, I can. But I think for me, it's also been a journey of really getting honest with myself. And the hardest part is the sense of confidence that you have to have. As an entrepreneur, people see the end result of it all, right? It's like, the podcast looks great. Oh, thank you. Or, the awards or the panels, all of that looks sexy and fun. But what they don't see is the nights where you don't get the deal.
Right.
Where you expected that your revenue was going to be X for this month and it's actually Y. And you're like, oh, what am I going to do?
Right.
Or the imposter syndrome or the feelings of like, man, can I really do this? What am I doing? What do people even care? Like those are the biggest things about entrepreneurship that people don't talk about that are probably more common than the wins that you see. Absolutely. You're going to be in the valley more than you will be at the peak. And it's just getting comfortable with that. And
talk about like the multiple roles you play as an entrepreneur, from building your own materials. For example, I added my podcast. It's like all of those growing pains are real. And, you kind of start to feel a little burnout sometimes, especially when you don't see the results to your point that you're hoping for, or it takes a little longer to see results. It's definitely not for the faint of heart.
Not at all.
So I love this journey that you're on, and I love the work that you're doing. I believe in you.
Thank you, Jasenia. Thank you. I believe in you too. I appreciate it. And, one thing I'll say is that even just what you just described, like having to do everything yourself, the beauty in that, if you choose to see it that way, is it speaks to kind of the ways of working as we're looking to the future. Like we're in an environment now where our industry has completely experienced a major shift. And we're all sort of being called to this entrepreneurship world, whether we like it or not.
Right.
And so having to do all of these things, having to wear multiple hats, develop new skills, learn AI, learn production, learn all of these things, being in front of the camera, even if you don't feel like it, all of that stuff is going to be aggregated. It's going to be the real value moving forward.
Absolutely.
We all have to become, to a certain degree, generalists. We all have to become people with range, be able to do a lot of different things. You don't have to know everything about everything, but know a lot about a lot of different things, enough about a lot of different things where you can show up and contribute and add value in different spaces. And, if anything, entrepreneurship has definitely taught me that. So
difficult and challenging and beautiful at the same time. 100%. It's a journey. Thinking about the D&I space and you departing that space, but still continuing to do the work within the lives of men. Can you share any message of hope for people that are still in it, in corporations where they're pushing a boulder up a hill? I was definitely in that situation a few years ago. And any words of encouragement or hope?
I stay strong and just trust that your work, whether it's valued inside of your organization or not, is important work. And not to get super woo-woo or spiritual here, but I do believe that there is a higher energy at play. There's a higher power at play. And I do believe the meek will inherit the earth. And at some point, the tides will turn and this environment that we're in will shift. And a lot of us, those of us who have done this work and continue to do this work, are laying the foundation for that new paradigm shift. And it feels difficult. It feels hard right now. But I think it's important. And it's very difficult having just left that space, knowing how, not only the work is under attack, but your personhood, like who you are as an individual is under attack. And because this work around inclusion and impact and belonging and heart-based leadership is unlike any other role that you can have in corporate, in that it demands that you pour yourself into it. And so when you don't feel the support and when you don't feel sort of the momentum in a positive direction, it's hard to separate who you are from that work. So, just be mindful of that. So
Jason, thinking about where you are now, what does support look like to you? What brands do you want to work with? What companies? What's like in the horizon for Jason? What are your big goals and dreams?
big goals and dreams. A lot of them. I don't know if we have enough time to go over them, but I'm really excited about the lives of men. I'm really excited about, there's a program that we've developed called the Manuscript. It's a leadership development program for men. And it really is sort of a 6-module workshop that's designed for men to develop a game plan to be successful in whatever area of their life that they want to. So I'm really excited about scaling that. I'm also excited about, we have just reorganized the platform. We're now a public benefit corporation. My co-founder has just joined me. And so we've expanded our offering to include Camping to Connect, which is an organization that sort of takes young men out into the woods as a way of healing and combating of the loneliness crisis and mental health. So really excited about scaling that work. And then getting more data driven. I think part of the lives of men, there's a 3-legged stool to it. The third stool is a culture lab aspect to it, where we're developing proprietary data sources where we can now go to organizations that want to work with men and say, hey, here's what we're hearing from men. You can work with us to help shape strategy, help shape your products, your go-to-market strategy externally, but even internally from a workplace standpoint, we're developing sort of strategy around how we engage men in that space as well. So really growing what I call a really holistic, integrated platform around this conversation.
I love that. Yeah. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing everything that you continue to develop with the lives of men. What does support look like to you these days, Jason?
Ooh, support that I offer is support that I need.
To you. Ooh. For you. How when you are feeling supported, what are people pouring into you? What does that look like?
Man, I'll be honest with you. This last year has been a very difficult one for a lot of us. For, we were talking about you as well, and for me. And I have been so surprised and taken aback by the fact that there have been people who I've helped, who I've shown up for, that have not shown up for me. And that's one of the hardest lessons that I've had to learn, is that not everyone will show up for you the way that you do for them. And as someone who doesn't ask for help, as someone who is uncomfortable receiving help sometimes, that hurts, because while I don't ask for it, of course I want it. Of course I need it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying help in terms of like, hey, I need you to get me a job, or I need you, but it's just like, yo, check in on me.
Right.
It's like, how are you feeling? How can I help support you? Like, just that question alone works wonders, right? I'm self-sufficient. I cook and clean for myself and all these things, but I'm still grateful when my partner does it, so from that standpoint, I'm having a hard time answering this question because I am getting support from folks by way of like, hey, we believe in you. We see what you're doing. Keep going. But I don't know. Sometimes it's hard for me to ask or like get clear on that. You really stumped me on that question, because I want to be vulnerable and say I need help. But sometimes I don't know what kind of help I need. And so that makes it a little difficult.
Well, I definitely want to check in on you more. Rooting for you through this journey, I know is challenging when we're trying to do so much, yet you are on your own and, trying to do it all. So we'll check in on you more.
Thank you.
The last question is, where's this work needed the most, do you think? And also, how can we create more spaces for men to show up with vulnerability as themselves and just open the door to those conversations more?
Man, this work is needed everywhere. Because I do think that this work is more than just creating spaces for men and boys to thrive. This is about saving our planet, saving democracy, saving what's left of our institutions, quite frankly. And I don't want to be super hyperbolous about that, but the reason we are in this environment that we're in the world, not just in the US, but globally, is because there's this energy of masculinity. We won't necessarily say names, but there's this energy that has created lack in an abundant world. Like, there's enough water for everybody, there's enough air for everybody. Why is it that some people have more than others, right? So that's because that's been manufactured. So for me, the work that I'm doing is to directly impact that, whatever that energy is, and then hopefully from that have other things sort of bloom from there. But I also think that those of us who are in the space, in the healing space, tend to forget that the real impact that's made is with the people that are in the community, right? For me, I can have a conversation with a guy who's in therapy, and the impact there is going to be marginal. But if I'm back in the Bronx, going to visit my mom, and I'm going in the building and I see a young man, and he's just kind of like, if I can engage with that person and shift something in him, that's the impact.
Right.
So I don't want us to forget the fact that, there's real work to be done at the ground level of all of this. Let's not stay so up here. Let's figure out a way to bring the work down here where it really matters.
Thank you for sharing that. And I want to share something that happened to me this morning as I was coming here. So I was in the Bronx. I left my car by my friend's apartment, and this young man was following me. And he said, "Hey, do you need help with your luggage? I can help you bring your luggage down to the stairs." And I said, "No, sorry," because I didn't have any cash on me. I assumed that he wanted to have some money, and I didn't want to disappoint him. He's like, "It's okay. I can just help you anyway." And he brought my bags down to the train. I had like 3 bags. And he said, and I'm like, "What can I do for you?" And he said, "Just pray for me. Just pray for me. And that's enough." I held his hand and we shared a prayer together on the train station.
That's great.
And I was brought to tears doing that. And I just felt these emotions that were just so sweet. Mm-hmm. But I think it just speaks to what you're saying. Like, we don't need money. We don't always just need money. The focus on money is really stealing away our true essence and the real work that needs to be done. And you just explained it so beautifully that men are needed on this planet to shift away from, and women from capitalism, and just let's get back to our essence of rebuilding, of nurturing, of helping each other, of understanding and compassion. And it's so beautiful how you explained it. And when we were prepping for this too, it like really touched me because it moves away from strength and just like, let's go back to our softness and our beauty. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And I have one last question. I didn't prepare you for this one, but you know, you're Dominican.
Yes.
I'm Dominican. Do you follow Dominican TikTok?
I'm not on TikTok, but
there are so many videos about Dominican men and how bad they are, like in relationships and like toxic and all these things. Like, it's a thing.
Okay.
What do you say? What do you say to that? Like,
I don't know.
Dominican men have such a bad reputation. Yeah. You are such an amazing example of what a beautiful, positive Dominican man looks like. What do you say to that? Like, because I mean, there's two sides of the coin, right? They're not all bad. Mm-hmm. There's definitely some that need a lot of work, but how do you respond to that?
I don't know how I respond to that because on one side, I don't want to rag on men because I know that, you know, men are probably the most sensitive species on the planet. Right. But I think there's some truth to that. There's some truth to the fact that everything is rooted in this hyper masculine way of being. Mm-hmm. That's not only reinforced by other men, it's reinforced by women too.
Right. And absolutely. It's both. It takes two, right?
Right. So that's part of it. It's like, let's just be honest about where we're getting our lessons and who's reinforcing them. Because you'd be surprised how often women reinforce them too. But I think it's just a matter of, we need to like look at the cultural dynamic of that and say, like, what is it that what are we teaching young people about human life and what it's worth. And I don't think we're doing a good job of that.
Yeah, because spreading those messages too is not they're not helpful. Right. They're definitely not helpful. And it just throws more fuel to the fire.
Our culture is everything, todo un relajo.
Todo un relajo.
Yeah, it's just like you can't have a serious conversation about something. It's like, that's funny, ha, 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 but let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Do that.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what man of the house should do.
Yeah, you should. You should. El hombre de la casa.
I'll do it in Spanish.
Jason, thank you so much for being on Mujeres Create. Love this conversation. Love everything that you're doing. I just wish you the very best on this journey. And I definitely am here to offer my community to you as well. I know a lot of mujeres, everyone are going to enjoy this episode. And thank you for making the time. This has been so fun.
Thank you, Jason. It's been an honor and a pleasure. And I can't wait to see it out in the world and what people, how people react to it. It's going to be great.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Yay. Awesome.